Welcome to Bushidokai Martial Arts. The art we teach here is Kosho Shorei Ryu Kempo. And what we're doing tonight is we have a couple of very special guests. And we're going to be talking about some of the things that have to do with the art. I'm going to put it in the context of what you guys that study here do most of the time. But then we're going to be talking to a famous American war hero. I know he's a hero because he doesn't think he is. So, you know, that says a lot about him right there. The patriotism that I have was largely instilled in me by my dad, who's here. And I have a lot of pride in this country. And on Veterans Day, which has just happened recently, of course, we talk here at the school a lot about what it is to be an American, what it is to serve this country, and how we can do that, whether we're in the military or not. And we had some really interesting conversation, and we had really great classes all day long. I've gotten several emails from different people with stories about things that people ought to know about. And we had just had our report cards for our kids, and we were out at a restaurant recently and happened to be lucky enough to sit next to Major Schildt here, who I'll introduce you to in a minute. And he was sitting there as we were eating and enjoying our bouncy kids. And so we started talking to him. He's a real friendly guy, nice guy to talk to, as you'll hear in a minute. And he started telling me about some of his accomplishments, and this had just happened after Veterans Day and after a lot of the things that we were talking about here. And so I seized the moment and asked him if he wouldn't mind coming out here and talking to you guys, telling you some of the things that he told me. One of the things that impresses me the most about Major Schildt is that not only was he the very first American to escape from a POW camp from the Germans in World War II, we made it all the way across Poland and all the way to Moscow, Russia, before he was able to get a flight back to the United States. But he's been married to the same wonderful lady for 57 years. He's raised 6 kids. And as we've talked about in Veterans Day, as we've talked about the sacrifices that a lot of veterans have to make, a lot of people in the military have to make, especially the sacrifice of being away from your family for an extended period of time. And I spoke with Major Schildt about how many times he's done that, and for a period of years been away from his kids, and he's got 6 of them, so that was pretty tough. So one of the things we're accomplishing tonight is we're going to video this. I'm going to be giving copies of that video to Major Schildt for each of his children so that they can see how much all of us Americans who they don't even know appreciate their sacrifice being without their dad for an extended period of time. So, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my dad, Walt Lopriori, and Major Jim Schildt. Oh, thank you very much. I thought you were going to do a roll there. Been to Japan, so.
77, I'm not quite as steady as I used to be.
It's tough on this mat.
I'm very proud to represent the armed forces, and also I don't have any lesson plan or anything like that. It's not like a class. It's just I hope to turn it into questions and answers. They asked me to bring along this I could pass around to show you. A few of the decorations. One of them was one of the Sun's medals from Vietnam. The Silver Star, Purple Heart, Prisoner of War Medal, and Army Occupation Medal. It shows Army of Occupation for both Europe and Japan. And then numerous other, like campaign medals. So I can pass that around and let all of you see that.
Okay. Before we do that, could you explain a little bit about the significance of...
well, the Silver Star is for gallantry in action. That's the 3rd highest medal given to, first is the Medal of Honor, then the Distinguished Service Cross, and then the Silver Star for gallantry in action. And the Purple Heart, of course, most of these are awarded posthumously. They're for a combat wound that you actually received during a combat engagement. I served with the 1st Armored Division, most notably on Anzio beachhead, the little guys that studying history. And we went up through Rome, the first troops to go into Rome, and then we got up into the northern section, the western section of Italy, mountain area. And that's where we ran into a lot of difficulties. That's where believe it or not, I was a forward observer. To give you a little background, I started off in the Army from a little town in Maryland after losing 9 members of a 10-member family, mother and dad and 7 brothers and sisters. They were all deceased. It was just a very unlucky family. And I had to finish high school on my own. I got guardian's consent to go into service at 17. They have to actually sign for it if you went a year early. Actually, 18 was the age. And from a little town in northwestern Maryland, where Camp David's at. The president uses that now. It's called Camp David. They finally put it on the map of the Blue Ridge Mountains of Maryland. And I'm proud to tell you that I had to situation because I was deprived of a home. I had no family, no home, so the service was my home. And from first entry into the service, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, I'm very proud to tell you that I went from private, PFC, corporal, buck sergeant, and staff sergeant by the time I turned 18, just before I turned 19 years of age. In other words, in 2 years. I was studying at night and getting every bit of education requirements that I possibly could. Planned to go to OCS, which I got my commission from Artillery OCS in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, just a couple days after I turned 21. So between going in early at 17 and the 3 years from private to staff sergeant in the regular Army and then to commissioned officer, I did, thank God, it was just fortunate to work all that out before I turned 21, or just a couple of days after I turned 21. And then we were married. I met a young lady. I coached a boxing team in the Army and lost a gentleman at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, running a basic training camp. And had to take his body. It was in an unfortunate accident at Fort Bragg. And I met my wife, and we've been married. It'll be 58 years this month. And in my right arm, we're 3-generation Army. Had 2 sons that fought in Vietnam for 5 years. I finished almost 22 years in the Army. And we have 1 son who was blind in the Army in Vietnam. I have a grandson. We have a grandson that was jumped on his airborne ranger, jumped on Panama, and yeah.
Mom, are you gonna pass those medals around?
You want us to pass them around? You could probably explain them without having to see them, right? So I'll pass them around for everyone to see. Is that what you want me to do?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll start with you, Nick, okay?
Am I going too fast, by the way? I want to get into the interesting part of the prisoner of war, in fact. Like I mentioned, I had 2 sons, Vietnam, and then the 1 grandson jumped on Panama. There was only 1 airborne jump there. So we were 3 generations in the same family. I'm proud to tell you we got just over 50 years of honorable service, Army, and approximately the same number of Army medals and decorations in 1 family. The 2 boys, Vietnam, the old man, World War II, and the grandson in Panama. Now, my combat was in Anzio Beachhead, 1st Army Division. I don't know if you remember or have read, Anzio Beachhead was a very strange beachhead. It was one of the quietest beachheads of World War II. But the Germans were smart. They waited till we were all embodied in, settled in to Anzio beachhead, and they had pulled back far enough with poor intelligence to zero everything in, and they waited till all the ships were unloaded, the carriers and everything, personnel carrier, and consolidated on the beachhead, and then they started opening up fire lines. We were like cave dwellers for almost a year. Finally broke out of Anzio beachhead and up through Rome, and I was hit and captured on a mission because as an artillery observer, we found this out when we graduated from OCS. They told us at graduation we had an adjusted life expectancy. They figured about anywhere from 21 to 28 days of actual combat duty. That we'd either be killed, hit, wounded in some way, or some way out of action, because you're on the hottest spot on the front lines, what we call an observation post. You were the eyes for the artillery. And we used either an aerial Cub. They used small single-engine aircraft, L4 and L5 Cubs, where they had a tank. You were with a tank assault mission with, like George Pattinson, his drives. We were the artillery out there to support the action from the front lines, give them the support of the artillery fire. And then we also had ground, and you had to have an OP, the observation post. And it was one of these that I was trying to occupy, because you have to, in the eyes of the artillery, you have to maintain the high ground. Of course, that is an old expression that goes back to the days of the ancient conquerors, where you maintain the high ground is the most important element. But anyway, out on 4th of July of 1944, a place called Sol di Elsa, in starting into northern Italy, I was hit and captured on a mission. And when I came to, I was in a German command post down in the basement of the house that we had already got two infantrymen and myself had got into, and already started to shoot artillery. And we lost our Jeep, and if we could have gotten away with, we had a hand-to-hand combat mission that we had to finish there, and we both got, one of my infantrymen got killed. Two of us wound up wounded in the basement of the same house that we were already up on the second floor.
So that was your observation post?
That was the observation post. We were using that for an OP. And we were finally hit, the grenade came through the window and hit us. We came to and we were a prisoner of war. We went through northern Italy, through several different interrogation, including an Italian prison that we were held in for a couple of days. Up through the Brenner Pass, they take your shoes and socks. They're in box cars. They call them 40 and 8s, real small box cars. World War I type of railroad car. It was built for 40 people.